Perdón, les movieron. Sí, no, no importa. Dando la presentación.
Yes, you sit in there now. Nana will sit here, you will sit here. I apologize. Can I help you with this? Right. I should be complete. Francisco should be sitting here. Francisco, this is your seat.
Am I next to her?
So let me check for. We have
Larissa. Sorry.
Yes, exactly. Gracious. Yeah, you are.
Oh, lei.
I hope everybody's comfortable. Yeah. Okay. Maybe the lead you want to reach the leader. Thank you very much for we'll be having 5 minutes each just to give our perspective, then we'll allow the audience to ask questions. Maybe after that, we also have a laptop, maybe 1 minute, depending on the time now. This. So that's the plan. Yeah. We have 2 hours, so there is plenty of time to make the opening presentations. Yeah. And after that, I guess we will have mostly Q&A. Yes. So 5 to 7 minutes in the opening. Is that enough? I think it should be fine now. Yeah. Perfect. Anything I can help you? No? Yeah. Okay. Okay. And we will have one speaker joining virtually. Sonia from IPCC, Vice Chair.
Y el computador si lo tengo acá bien, o no es posible, no.
Hello. Hello. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. So let me take this opportunity to welcome you to this event today, which is dedicated towards transformation of education to empower young people, and trying to deep dive into how we enhance the participation of young people in climate change science and in IPCC. So the focus of the discussion here will be on trying to explore the challenges, the opportunity, but also the lesson learned. And this event has been jointly organized by the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the Philanthropy Cortes Solari, and also Mary Foundation. I'll be moderating this event, and thankful to the very rich and comprehensive panel members that we have today. So before introducing the panel member, I would like to reflect some few perspectives. We have just started the 7th assessment cycle of the IPCC, which will deliver the 7th assessment report that will be critical for informing the negotiation at UNFCCC, but also critical for informing decision and policy making. Of course, in the UNFCCC, including the global stocktake. So we have very ambitious agenda for the next 7 years. And the IPCC chair have articulated 3 major priorities that is going to be the subject for our implementation. The number 1 priority will include trying to strengthen inclusivity and diversity. This is an area that we see this session very relevant, particularly in our objective and vision of trying to strengthen the participation of young people, youth, in the process. This includes in generation of knowledge, but not only generation of knowledge, but also in the assessment of the report itself, and also in matters related to packaging and dissemination of the output and result of the IPCC assessment. So we see avenue of the possibility for young people youth to participate in the process. The second priority of the IPCC chair is trying to strengthen shielding of scientific integrity of the IPCC report and the relevance, and also enhancing collaboration and cooperation between partners for the same purpose. So that's why you see a very multidisciplinary approach in this session. So among the activities that we are considering as part of our vision in implementation, including trying to raise more awareness and sensitize more young people, get them inspired to participate in the process along those three categories that I've mentioned. Promoting enhanced involvement of youth and young people in climate change research and publication, and promoting the empowerment of young people through transformative education. Once again, the three questions that we'll be exploring, including the challenges. We would like to get your perspective in terms of what are the challenges that are stumbling block for enhanced participation of young people? What are the opportunities that we can share? And what are the lessons learned? So the panel will explore those issues. To introduce the panel, starting from left, we have Horace, who will be speaking about the perspective in terms of the opportunities that the IPCC provide for young people, including the scholarship program. And then we have Jean Pascal, former IPCC vice chair, will share perspective on opportunities and lessons. And particularly, I would request him to share more perspective on opportunities because of his, track record on this matter. And then we have Takeshi, who is co-chair of Task Force Bureau on National Greenhouse Inventory, will also share on experience and lesson from young people in Japan. And then just to introduce Nana, Working Group 1 Vice Chair, once again, will be sharing the perspective and opportunities and challenges in enhancing the participation of young people in climate change science, taking the perspective from Ghana, but also zeroing in Africa at large. And then online, we have Sonia, Working Group 1 Vice Chair. She will also be zooming in sharing with us perspective and lesson learned and experience from Europe. And then Patricia, IPCC focal point for Kenya, she will also be sharing some challenges that young people are encountering in terms of the participation in climate change, giving Kenya perspective and also Africa. And we are also delighted to have Francisca Cortez Solal, the president of Philanthropy Cortez Solal. She will give us more perspective on the work that the foundation has been doing in strengthening the participation of young people. And then Larissa from UNICEF will also share the perspective, the great work that UNICEF is doing in strengthening the participation of young people, children, and youth since back 1946. And Eric, I know that you are also attending other event, so we'll make sure we have a good arrangement so that you can be able to deliver your presentation and share your perspective before you leave. From Office of Climate Education, we are delighted to have you as well. But also we have Patricia Crifo, Professor Science, Deputy Director of of energy for climate. She will also give perspective on that regard. Last but not least, we have Juliet Ruchi from Kenya, representing young people, representing Yungo, whom we've had some discussion over the last couple of days. So, colleague, we are very delighted to have this opportunity, and I declare this event open. And now I would like to invite Horace to start the show. The floor is yours, please.
Many thanks to our Vice Chair, Dr. Changa, for giving us the opportunity. I'll be talking about the opportunities that are available in the IPCC to engage early career scientists. And towards the end of my talk, I'll present the IPCC scholarship program. Next slide, please. Okay. To start with, you're probably aware a lot has been said about the special report that the IPCC already decided to prepare a special report on climate change and cities in the AR7. And in January, the IPCC will be deciding on the other products, the reports that will be prepared in this cycle. But I just wanted to go through the steps, the silent steps in the preparation of the reports and highlight some opportunities, particularly for early career scientists. Every report that the IPCC prepares starts with a scoping and preparing the outline of the report, and the outline is approved by the panel. Then the next step is the nomination of authors who will prepare the report, and those that are nominated are selected by the Bureau, and then there's an internal review of the zero-order draft, and then the expert reviews of the drafts up to the final step, which is the approval. But in my talk, I'll talk about what early career scientists can do after the outline has been approved and how the IPCC selects its authors and also the expert review, because in the interest of time. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is just an example of the outline that is approved by the IPCC. This was AR6, the working group 1. It comes with the titles of the chapter and some indicative bullets that will show what the chapter will contain. So yeah, it's just an example. Can you show the other slides, please? This is just an example. There were 12 chapters in the report. So this is just an example of the chapters. Okay. Yeah, this is just an example. So as an early career scientist or researcher, after this comes out and is always publicly available, you can do research that will inform the report. That is one way you can contribute to the work of the IPCC. By doing the research, just looking at the indicative bullets, identify the right topics, and do research that will inform, that will be assessed by the IPCC. That's one way you can contribute in the IPCC work. Next slide, please. So conduct the relevant literature. Can you go to the next slide, please? So the next thing, once the outline has been approved by the panel, the next step is the selection of authors. So there's a call for nomination of authors, which is sent out by the secretariat, and the nominations, the authors are nominated by focal points. Well, here you see I've provided links so that you know we can go and find who the relevant focal point is, and observe organizations and IPCC bureau members. And after that nomination, then the IPCC bureau selects the authors. Here I'm just showing an example. The message here is that there are 5 categories. There are coordinating lead authors, contributing authors, review editors, and chapter scientists. Chapter scientists are usually the early career scientists that have just completed their PhDs. The other message that I wanted to communicate in this meeting is that what you see, the coordinating lead authors, those are that are encircled with the blue colors. Those are the ones that are selected by the Bureau. So the Bureau selects the coordinating lead authors and the lead authors and the review editors. But it doesn't really mean in IPCC that if you are nominated, you will be selected. Just because there's only a limited number of people who can be selected per chapter. So it doesn't also mean that if you are not selected, you are bad. It's just because there is a balance that has to be struck, gender balance, geographic balance. So if you are nominated but not selected, you should not despair, because there's another opportunities. Other opportunities, like if you look at what I've read, this is the bulk in the report, bulk of contributors. These are not selected by the bureau, but they contribute significantly and they acknowledge appropriately. As you can see, their names are always listed at the beginning of every chapter, just like the authors. So you can, even if you are not selected, you can still contribute. And the chapter scientists are usually selected by the author team as well. So the next thing, the next opportunity to contribute is the expert review. The expert review is done in two stages. There's the expert review of the first order draft and the second order draft. So the review process usually takes about 8 weeks, and it might be shorter depending on the decision of the panel. And the scheduling of the review is always in the strategic plan. So you can go and check the strategic plan, see when the review process is going to start. And we always try to make sure that it doesn't overlap with events such as the COP where we are today. And all the review comments are made available. One thing that I wanted to show is that all the reviewers, if you register, if you sign up as a reviewer and you submit your comments, you are acknowledged. So in every report, you see the reviewers are acknowledged appropriately. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about in the next few minutes is the scholarship program. When the IPCC was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2007, it decided to establish the scholarship program. So just to provide opportunities for early career scientists to undertake studies that would not otherwise be possible without the support. After, in the process of time, we were able to partner with certain foundations that have really supported. We acknowledge the contribution by the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation, the Como Foundation, and the AXA Research Fund, and the Oxford University, which is also co-funding 2 scholarships at the moment. There are also a lot of people, individuals, and organizations that have contributed financially to support the scholarship program. I will not go through the list, but they are listed in this table that I'm showing here. Maybe the last thing that I wanted to talk about in the interest of time is that up to now, 2023, we have supported 91 scholarships in the IPCC. And currently, we are finalizing the contracts for 23 more scholarships. We launched the call early this year in March. And we are finalizing the contracts. And after that, they will join the list. If you want more information about the scholarship, please don't hesitate to write to us. Here is the email address shown here. I think I'll leave it here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Maurice, for that very informative narrative. You went through the process, which is very important for all of us to understand the process, but also how we can participate in the IPCC process, but also the scholarship program. And our vision and aim in the 7th assessment cycle is to ensure that we strengthen further the scholarship program. Now, I would like to invite Jean Pascal to come and share his perspective.
Thank you, Ladislas. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Msolisi, for the nice introduction, the setup for what we're talking about this afternoon. I'd like to focus my remarks on the scholarship program, but before doing that, saying that indeed, as Msolisi explained and Ladislas explained, there are many opportunities for young scientists to participate in the IPCC processes in many different roles, and they are not known well enough. I'd like to start with a very short personal story. I was stopped here the other day by a lady who is now a young member of the Bureau of IPCC, and she told me, "Oh, thank you. 7 years ago, I heard you talking somewhere, and your last slide was about please don't hesitate to volunteer to become an author of IPCC. And if you don't know how to do it, check who is the IPCC focal point of your country on the IPCC website and ask questions." She did. She became an author, and now, last July, she was elected on the bureau as vice chair of one of the working groups. I was very happy to hear that. You know, encouraging young people helps to make them assume roles in IPCC, and I think, and it doesn't cost anything, if all the those involved in IPCC today and in the coming years as authors, um, you know, pushed that information that indeed it's possible to participate in the IPCC process, not only as author, as Solisi explained so well, but also as expert reviewer, contributing author, etc. You know, progressively there would be many more young scientists involved in the IPCC, which would be good for them and good for the IPCC. Now, I'd like to, as I said, focus a little bit my remarks, because I know others will talk about other aspects of the question that's on the table on the scholarship program. You know, I was also a young scientist once. That's not the case anymore. But I had the chance to get a scholarship when I was a student in physics at the University of Louvain in Belgium, and I got a scholarship to study to the US at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. And this grant, this scholarship, allowed me actually to work with some of the most qualified US climate scientists, including the late Steve Schneider, which not only taught me a lot about the climate system and the way it works, but also, and that's important and relevant to what I'm going to say, about climate communication, about interdisciplinarity, and about the science policy interface and the best way to shape climate information so that it is indeed relevant, more relevant and understood, and that it's actionable by policy and decision makers. So my interest for the IPCC scholarship program, the ISP, if I can introduce one more acronym in this arena, is actually rooted in my desire to allow as many young scientists as possible, particularly in countries which have less financial resources to support them, to benefit from the kind of support myself I benefited from more than 40 years ago. So when the IPCC received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007, together with Al Gore, for its work of informing the international community about the size of the challenge that climate change constitutes, but also about the opportunities to fight it, I was a member of the IPCC Bureau, and I immediately thought that the money received from the Nobel Committee could be used to help young scientists in the developing world. Some member countries in the years following 2007 actually tried to defend the idea that supporting young scientists, and I'm not going to quote any names, was not part of the IPCC mandate, that strictly the IPCC mandate was to assess the existing science, etc. And we sometimes, with the Belgium delegation and with others, had to oppose those who wanted to, allow me to use the expression, phase down or even phase out the scholarship program. And I'm very glad this didn't happen. I thought, on the contrary, that the ISP was an important element of making the IPCC more inclusive, which is one of the directions in which the IPCC needs to go, and also have a better geographic balance. We looked for, and with the help of the Board of Trustees then, we found, and they've been mentioned in the preceding talk, a number of different partners, and I really would like to thank all of them to complement the resources from the Nobel Peace Prize, because actually £1 million, I like round number, £1 million is nothing, particularly if you don't want to touch the capital and only use the interest. And I can tell you the interest in Swiss banks when there is no inflation is close to zero. So if we had not had all those partnerships with philanthropies, we would not have been able to fund as many scholarships, the 114 that will soon be funded by the program. Now, 114 is not a negligible number. It's a significant number in a sense. But at the same time, if there was, and maybe there will be one once, this is maybe a suggestion, a climate science gap report. There are many gap reports these days, but I have not seen a climate science gap report yet. Maybe there could be one. I'm sure that one of its conclusions is that 114 at the level of all countries in the global south is a very small number, particularly in the 15-year period. So the needs are actually much larger than what the IPCC has been able, together with the philanthropic partners, to fund. So I'm really convinced we can do much better. And I like to just highlight, and I'm close to the end of my remarks, three possible areas, three possible directions in which we could go. One is certainly to try to find more money. I think we need more money. We need more partnerships. We need to find an innovative source of financing, using the arguments that science is actually at the root of everything the IPCC is doing, but also what UNFCCC is doing. And you have heard over the past few days the discussions about the scientific foundation of the need to phase out fossil fuels. This is just one of the many examples showing that how science is so important in those discussions here. And so those who are talking about climate finance up to now, they've, in my view, very much forgotten, neglected the need to maybe use a fraction of a percent of the money they are talking about. And a fraction of a percent of 100 billion or whatever is a lot of money compared to what we have been able to use for the scholarship program to fund the training and the scholarships for young scientists in the developing world. So finding more money is something we absolutely need to do. The second thing I think we could do better with the scholarship program, and this is to be considered by the science board and those who manage the scholarships, is maybe not only to stop at funding the PhD that those students are doing, but also to make sure that they receive some form of either media training or training in communication, learning how to talk to decision makers and policy makers, so that they can be heard. It means how to formulate, package scientific information in a way that is relevant. I think it would be very useful as well. And it would, I'm sure, also help the IPCC a little later if some of those students helped by the scholarship program become authors in IPCC. It will help the IPCC to do a better job itself. Finally, I think we need to try to see how the scholarship program can also play a role in improving the gender balance in the IPCC. And one idea to consider, and it's not for me to decide, but please think about it. It's an idea I considered when I was campaigning to become the chair the last few months during the spring. I didn't become the chair, but I thought a lot about the scholarship program during my campaign. One suggestion I was given by the rector of one of the very few universities devote entirely to women in the world, the Women University in Seoul, is that for each grant, each scholarship that would be given to a man, there would be 2 reserved for women. So think about that. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jean Pascal, for those thoughts, very good thoughts. And we have captured there are many opportunities, and we can do much better than what we are doing right now. And this is exactly what we are going to do. And of course, the panel will decide in January on the Board of Trustees to accelerate the implementation of the scholarship program. We are very grateful for all the thought that you have shared with us. Yeah. Now, just like to invite Takeshi to share perspective. If you have the mic, you can speak there, or you can come here. Can you share the mic, please? Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, is this okay? Is this on? Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Takeshi Inoki, co-chair of the task force on national greenhouse gas inventories. I actually consider myself quite young. I don't know, despite my appearance, I consider myself very young. And when I was nominated to the TFI co-chair position, I was surprised actually before when I was approached by the Japanese government because actually quite new to this process as well. So I was thinking, well, I'm actually new to the process and also very young. Well, why are they nominating me? But anyway, I think this says something about the Japanese government and their sort of approach to nominating people to the IPCC bureau. So I'm very thankful to the Japanese government. I I just have one thing that I wanted to introduce. I have a very short talk. One initiative by the Japanese government trying to get young scientists more involved in the IPCC process. And it's very simple. It's actually doesn't cost that much money either. They hold a regular gathering of authors and co-chairs, vice chairs of the IPCC, and invite young scientists together to have the young scientists present their research and to share their research findings. And also for the experienced authors and chairs and co-chairs to share experiences of what it was like, for example, in the previous cycle, drafting the assessment reports and methodology reports. Because as an outsider, we see the products, the assessment reports, the methodology reports, but it's hard to understand the work that actually goes into drafting this. And I heard a couple of times the previous authors joke that when they signed up, they didn't know what they were getting themselves into. But that's only a joke. But it's good to have provide this opportunity to younger scientists to get to exchange views with experienced authors and chairs and vice chairs to understand the IPCC process, to understand the work, the amount of time and challenges that they might face once they become part of this process. There's also a small fund that Japan has to support the work of younger scientists to help get their literature, for example, translated into English. Some very simple things like this, and also to give researchers access to other literature because sometimes these are not free. So some small things like this actually I've heard are very useful and helpful to the younger scientists to have access to other people's research so that they can carry out their own research. So this I just wanted to introduce this platform that Japan gives to have the experienced authors and the younger scientists come together to learn from each other. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Takeshi, for that experience. I think it's quite useful for us to take into consideration where we are moving forward, bringing together young scientists and working with established scientists is very good. But I think the other thing that you said, you are new in the process and you are very young. That give hope for all the young people here and those listening online that they can be having a good opportunity to do so. Now I'd like to invite Nana, Working Group 1 Vice Chair. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I think I'm also young. Okay, so I pick it from the challenges and the opportunities and give a few examples and what I'm doing and the way forward. So, 2 points on the challenges. I see there is low awareness among the youth or the young people um, all across, particularly in Africa. And even those who are aware that there is IPCC or process like that, they're not sure how to be a part of the process. So we have work to do to, and I also see that we don't have mentorship. In fact, of course, IPCC doesn't have the mentorship platform, which probably we have to consider introducing it whichever way possible. In terms of opportunities, we need a succession plan. I mean, obviously, that is why we are having activities like this. It is important, and the mentorship will help have this plan much easier. The youth are innovative, and so it's an advantage for us to also be thinking out of the box. We need to help provide solutions and not always preach the doom as the people always say about IPCC. Of course, the three working groups work in sync in providing the evidence and also the solutions that we have to look up to. But innovation will help put up our best in this discussion, and the youth come on board with a lot of innovative ideas. We see enthusiasm and exuberance in the youth, and this is an advantage we can take as well as IPCC to really get them involved. As a lecturer, my main preoccupation is to train young people. So on every platform, I introduce IPCC to the youth or the young people, especially those in my class. I've engaged young people on different platforms in Ghana, um, speaking on webinars, workshops, conferences, and each time I do mention IPCC. Not only in Ghana, I've done this also in other platforms across Africa. We have seen improvement in the state assessment cycle for the participation of the early career and the youth in the IPCC, and I believe it will be better in the seventh cycle as well. We are making the efforts, and we can do this. I have discussed with my focal point in Ghana to hold workshops for potential authors for the seventh assessment cycle, and we plan to do a number of activities as well. I believe together with Changa, we can do this also in other um, countries in Africa for the improvement of the early career scientists. These are a few thoughts I like to share, that there are opportunities, although there are challenges. All of us need to be involved, even if we don't formalize the mentorship process. Once we have heard about the IPCC and as heard earlier on, the IPCC report is the most fundamental information that is used for decision making. And throughout COP, you have seen that the report is being referred to again and again. Inclusiveness is very important. I mean, in gender, in age, in geographical, in expertise. So, in all of these things, we need to be thinking about the early career scientists as well. So, all of us need to be a part of probably the mentorship process I'm proposing. At least talk to somebody or a number of people in whatever capacity you can. Mention IPCC, the importance that it's there for them to contribute to in that sense. Thank you very much, Aga.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nana. And I will pick from the last point that all of us can be very good ambassador of IPCC, and I will really submit for your consideration to be good ambassador for IPCC and spread the news about IPCC and the opportunity that exists for us to participate. And also you have reflected about the lack of awareness, mentorship, and also the need for ensuring that we work with area career scientists. Thank you very much for that perspective. We will adapt according to the circumstance that we are having. I'm just very informed that Juliet will need to go very soon, but also Eric. And then from there, we'll go to Sonia. She's waiting online. So first, Juliet, you have the floor, please.
Thank you so much, Chair Ladislaus, for the opportunity, and thanks to everyone who is present here today. My name is Juliet Oluoch. I am from the Yungo Science Working Group. For those who might not know, Yungo is the official constituency for children and youth by the UNFCCC. So I'm just going to build on what the previous speakers have said, but also take this opportunity to highlight some of our key priorities as a science working group, and also to, highlight this perspective of young people in terms of engagement in the IPCC processes. So I'll start from challenges, and I'll summarize all my challenges in one kind of overarching theme, which is access. So young people lack access to information, and when I talk about access to information, there is the knowledge gap in terms of science information and the IPCC processes, but they also lack access to mentorship. We are just rejuvenating the science working group, and one of the key challenges that has also prevented the continuity of this working group is mentorship. When there is no mentorship, then it's hard for young people to lead themselves in the science processes. There is also a challenge of funding. We work a lot with early career researchers who do, great research on different topics, some even touching on the IPCC, but they lack funding support to publish their work, funding support to, get their research work reviewed, and many other challenges. So in terms of opportunities, our first opportunity that we see is to, building on existing youth networks. As a constituency, we are an umbrella of many youth organizations, so we are spread across the globe. And so our submission also to the IPCC is to build on existing youth networks and platforms such as Yongo to pass on this information. The second opportunity is in terms of global awareness and campaigns. The work of the IPCC can only be visible if we work together to do policy advocacy, if we work together to publicize this information, and also to break down, the complexities of the ICC processes itself among the younger generation. Another opportunity is in terms of, bringing together inclusive platforms. And what I mean by this is we would like to have sessions, for example, with the IPCC, where we can have exchanges on a bilateral basis or on a weekly basis on different IPCC thematic areas where young people can get the opportunity to exchange with the IPCC experts. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Juliet, for your thought, and we really appreciate for the work that you are doing at Yungo. And we've already started dialogue and exchange with Yungo. We've done already 2, and we are hoping to accelerate in the 7th assessment cycle. I'm delighted that you have mentioned those people related to access, knowledge gap, lack of mentorship is well being explained by Nana, and we hope that we can be able to address some of those as we are indulging into the 7th assessment cycle. And so we really appreciate for your contribution. Okay, so next on our list, I think let's go to Eric, because you're also about to leave, and please, the floor is yours here.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Eric Giliardi. I'm a climate scientist, and I was a lead author for the 5th assessment report, so probably when I was still young, some years ago. And clearly, as many of you know here, and Jean-Pascal was telling about it, when you are thank you very much, Patricia. When you're a IPC scientist, suddenly you're taken into the science-society interface, like it or not. And so, on one hand, we have to be prepared for it, and that's what Jean-Pascal was saying during those media trainings. But also, it's questioning, okay, what is my role as a scientist in that science-society interface? And for me, since a few years now, it has been education. So when I talk about education here, and this is also expanding from what has been discussed in higher education, this is education at the school level, primary, secondary school worldwide. So after the Paris Agreement, we said, well, let's build something to empower teachers of the primary and secondary school worldwide to have resources, IPCC science-based, and I'll talk about it in a minute, and empower education systems, which are, it's a big challenge for them. But when you think of it, and Stefania Giannini, who is the Assistant Director General for Education at UNESCO, repeats that everywhere she goes. Without education, how can we imagine transforming our society? And for her, the most transformative that adaptation, climate adaptation action is education. But it's a huge challenge. So we created the OCE as a team of now 12 people in Paris. We became a center at the auspices of UNESCO a few years back. We blessed with a strong relationship with IPCC, with an observing organization. We have a MOU. The OC has a scientific and pedagogical committee where the 3 technical support units are sitting there. And you see a number of also science actors. In a way, the OC is the way to professionalize, make durable and visible the investment of the scientific community in the empowerment of teacher and education systems. So this mission to provide capacity building first is to make resources, and there are some. I have brought here some example of what we do. I don't know if some of you have tried to read the summary for policymakers of IPCC. They're really hard to read. See people laughing. So we made summary for teachers. These are a few examples. You can download them on the site oc.global. They're all checked by the IPCC authors, but also checked by educators to make sure they are pertinent in the classroom. We work in developing countries and global south, but also more and more in developed countries because the need is everywhere. Then, of course, if you just produce even the best resources, checked scientifically, pedagogically, you still need the professional development of teachers so they can use those resources, adapt them to their pedagogical practices. So we provide that as well. Plus, communities of practice. Teachers feel very lonely sometimes on these issues, and we need to make sure they exchange they practice their ideas. So really, it's providing, and that's more and more to the UNESCO system. And then, yeah, apologize, I have to leave early because today is the education day, as you know. This is why the IPCC is having that. So in the Greening Education Hub, in the Green Zone, which as OC and UNESCO Center, we are co-organizing. There are a number of things happening there as well. So this support to education system is really to seed that capacity building. We started in Mexico and Colombia. Now we're building a project. We're discussing with Nana and others in Senegal, Mauritius, and Kenya. And the idea is to expand then to other African countries. And also it's a support to the science community. As I was saying, we are experts in higher education as scientists, not so much in the primary and secondary schools. So it's also educating our scientific community on those topics. Right. So those resources I talked about the summary for policy, the summary for teachers, not for policymakers. We also do pedagogical guides. So I brought one here. You see, it's a 300 pages. We follow the IPCC special report. This was the climate change and land, and these are turnkey sequences that have been tested. They are done in 4 languages, freely available, free to reuse. This is really an amazing tool for many teachers worldwide. There are tens of thousands of those are being used now, and more and more in the system. Together with it, we also produce video capsules, multimedia animation. It's a whole ecosystem that follows every single report. And we're very pleased to announce also our AR6 summary for teacher report just came out last week for this for the COP. Right. So maybe to conclude, clearly climate change education is an amazing opportunity to, build a resilient future, we need to empower the teachers that themselves are the actors to empower the children. We need a scientific foundation. Has been said, we need the interdisciplinary. It's not just a topic in science or in biology, it's all the subjects that are concerned to give that systemic view that is so important. What we want is to, I think we call it to, the climate literacy is developing critical minds, hopeful heart, and able hands. It's those three dimensions that are so important. And if you miss one, you're going to have just a fraction of the knowledge that is needed for the children to empower them. So active pedagogies, this is science education, cooperation, accessibility and relevance. We need to work with the local actors in the countries that know the education system, and the pedagogy is there to adapt this, be that connective tissue between the global IPCC science and the local education systems. And this is how we will have a long-term impact, a legacy. Colombia is changing its curricula following that 5-year project we had with them to empower thousands of teachers and now schools towards that. So it's a very exciting times, and I'm really glad to see that we have that tool now at service of the IPCC community toward that grand challenge, which is quality climate change education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric, for and we really appreciate for your work, and particularly in trying to strengthen the dissemination of IPCC product, including the summary for teachers. I'm just seeing in the 7th assessment cycle having the summary for youth, and that would be great. And we've talked with Yungo, and I think you can be able to tap in as well. And also, I submit for your consideration to support the scholarship program. Thank you very much. So next on our list, I would really like to invite Sonia from online so that she can be able to contribute. I know she has been waiting for a while. Is Sonia available? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to thank the IPCC Vice Chair Ladislau Changa for the invitation to speak today. I think this is a really important topic, and I totally agree with what has been said by the previous speakers about the need, for instance, to have more support for young scientists. Myself also received a scholarship early in my career, and I was also starting to contribute to
Yes, thank you very much, Sonia, for your presentation, and we are very much appreciative for getting the time to provide the presentation and also the statistics that you have shared with us, which also consistent with what Jean Pascal have presented earlier about the low participation of women and that need some intervention. Only 28% out of the 100 in the working group 1. And also you have informed us about the extreme event that are having significant implication to the young people across the world. And we are very much appreciative for your presentation and also the research paper that you have shared with us is very informative. Thank you, Sonia. I hope you will still be online in case there'll be some question. So
Thank you, Alan.
over to Patricia. Oh, so, okay. So, yeah. So we can give the floor to Francisco and then.
Muchas gracias. Ojalá que todas las personas que estén acá se puedan poner sus audífonos. Me siento mucho más cómoda hablando español. Cuando me invitaron a esta presentación, lo más importante fue como irme al pasado y quise traer también un poco la experiencia y de cómo nosotros como Fundación Caserta llevamos casi 22 años trabajando en una educación integral para un desarrollo sostenible. Entonces sabemos por un lado, y todos sabemos que estamos en una crisis multidimensional donde tenemos el cambio climático, refugiados climáticos, problemas de guerra, sequía, etcétera, etcétera. Es decir, de alguna manera entendemos que el mundo, el planeta, está en una gran crisis. Entonces, de alguna manera dijimos, bueno, como humanidad necesitamos cambiar el paradigma, necesitamos cambiar la forma de que hemos estado haciendo las cosas. Algo no ha resultado y necesitamos cambiar. Y ese fue nuestro primer foco. Y ahí es donde, de alguna manera, está una lámina de... Esta presentación es del año 2008, 2010. Estas láminas las seguimos utilizando en el tiempo. Entonces hablamos de un paradigma lineal donde venimos desde el pasado, basado en los contenidos, en el individualismo, en la competencia, en lo impersonal, en el tener, en la uniformidad, en el consumo, en lo homocéntrico y obviamente en el éxito. Por lo tanto, nuestra apuesta a hablar de un nuevo paradigma es pasar a un paradigma eco, un paradigma circular, donde trabajamos sobre las habilidades, sobre el colectivo, sobre la colaboración, los vínculos, el ser, la diversidad, el cuidado, el ecosistémico y la felicidad. También, bueno, a lo mejor no van a entender mucho las láminas, pero en algún momento el paradigma cartesiano, en algún momento se fragmentó el conocimiento. Esa fue nuestra base. En algún momento el ser humano fragmentó el conocimiento. ¿En qué momento fue eso? Cuando el ser humano no pudo de alguna manera explicar la espiritualidad y la ciencia. Y ahí se quebra y se fragmenta de alguna manera la visión anterior. Y entonces quiero como mostrarles esta lámina cuál fue la educación que soñamos hace 22 años. Y nuestro primer esfuerzo fue dibujar lo que queríamos y lo que estábamos pensando para los niños en el futuro. Entonces primero dijimos, bueno, una educación que promueva el desarrollo humano y que incluya el cuerpo, que incluya la emoción, que es nuestro sentir, que incluya la mente, que tiene que ver con nuestra inteligencia y también que incluye nuestra propia espiritualidad. No hablamos de ninguna religión, solamente de la espiritualidad que cada uno lleva como ser. Después, por otro lado, dijimos, bueno, tiene que ser una educación que valore más el proceso formativo que el contenido. Luego dijimos, bueno, necesitamos una educación que consiste en que somos naturaleza, que todas las formas de vida estamos interconectadas. Y eso es lo que estamos hablando acá. Si estamos en una crisis climática y si estamos con problemas de extinción de especies, pues el ser humano es una de las especies que está en peligro de extinción. Pues dijimos, y aquí hay algo importante, una educación que potencie los oficios y los saberes. Entendemos que este nuevo paradigma, tal vez el valor de los oficios y los saberes tomen un rol distinto. No quiere decir de que la universidad y las competencias más técnicas sean importantes, pero no podemos olvidar el potencial que tienen los oficios y los saberes ancestrales o los saberes de nuestros abuelos y de nuestro pasado. Después dijimos, bueno, necesitamos la creatividad, mirar hacia el futuro, una educación centrada en la ciencia y la innovación. Y ahí podemos ver en la lámina cómo en ese momento teníamos estas imágenes. Luego, una educación que promueve una sociedad consciente de la urgencia de la sostenibilidad del territorio, que sabemos también que de alguna manera el territorio pasa a ser algo fundamental y que trabajar la tierra, sobre los oficios, el territorio, nos dan la posibilidad realmente de tener una sostenibilidad territorial. Luego dijimos, bueno, también necesitamos una educación que promueva la sociedad, que ponga la ciencia al servicio de la educación ambiental y la sostenibilidad. ¿Para qué? Para poder, de alguna manera, tomar buenas decisiones. Una educación que también promueve una sociedad que reconozca la cultura como una pieza clave de identidad y desarrollo. Bueno, esta es una imagen, yo vengo de Chile, de Sudamérica, esta es una imagen de una ceremonia típica ancestral de los pueblos originarios de la cordillera de los Andes. Entonces, aquí ponemos en el fondo que es importante también retomar la cultura y también esto que era ceremonias que utilizábamos en los colectivos. Contarles también que a lo largo de estos 21 años, no solamente esto fue en el año 2008, 2009, que nosotros dibujamos estas láminas y las quise traer ahora porque creía que era importante partir desde el principio. No puedo dilatarme mucho, pero contarles de que todo este trabajo, durante todo este tiempo, este trabajo tiene mediciones con grandes posibilidades, con mucho éxito y como un equipo especializado donde hemos ido midiendo todo este tipo de cosas que en este momento no eran posible medir. Porque el ser humano siempre estamos midiendo lo que podemos medir, pero hay cosas como la felicidad. ¿Cómo medimos la felicidad? ¿Cómo medimos el bienestar? Estas son cosas que son muy importantes para la felicidad de las personas. Entonces, ¿cuáles fueron nuestros aprendizajes en estos 21 años? Hablamos de que trabajamos en una dimensión social, socioemocional, en una dimensión cultural y en una dimensión ambiental. Entonces, en el primer dibujito que vemos, somos naturaleza y la educación debe integrar que la conservación es un compromiso personal y colectivo con nuestro autocuidado y nuestra propia sobrevivencia. La cultura es clave para entender nuestro origen, el sentido de pertenencia y la identidad territorial. Cuando hablamos del territorio, pasa a ser un rol fundamental. El territorio es lo que nos diferencia como ser humano. Luego, la ciencia nos permite, nos entrega evidencia que nos ayuda a tomar decisiones para tomar conciencia y resolver problemáticas. La educación debe ser integral para vivenciar experiencias que sean transformadoras y que transformen y vayan a la transformación del ser. Necesitábamos cambiar el paradigma. Espiritualidad y los valores son fundamentales para la convivencia y la construcción de sociedades que sean sustentables y felices. Entonces, esto nos llevó como fundación, como filosofía Solari, a adquirir 3 territorios en diferentes lugares de Chile. Uno está en la latitud 22, que es el desierto más árido del mundo. La otra reserva está en la latitud 33, que es la zona central de nuestro país, que tiene una crisis climática bastante acelerada. Y por último, en la latitud 44, que estaríamos ya en la Patagonia, que es una de las reservas más importantes de agua dulce en el territorio. ¿Cuál fue nuestra visión? Entendíamos que era importante para cambiar la educación, sabíamos que cómo cambiábamos la educación. Si finalmente en el pasado construimos las salas de clase, construimos las escuelas, por lo tanto la estructura de la educación estaba hecha. ¿Cómo podíamos compensar esa nueva educación? Y ahí es donde dijimos, bueno, una manera de compensar la educación es viendo lugares que podamos trabajar con los jóvenes, con los niños, con las niñas, con los profesores y con los docentes, bajo todos los conceptos que hablé anteriormente. Entonces, estas reservas se convirtieron en una gran sala de clase y un gran laboratorio natural, y ha sido también el gran expertise que nos ha dado el poder trabajar en estos 3 territorios que son tan distintos, con culturas tan distintas y con lugares tan distintos. Ahí entonces, esta es nuestra última lámina, y es como invitarlos un poco como a imaginar el futuro, pensando en la educación. Entonces, imaginemos que los parques nacionales están al servicio de la educación. Imagina que que la naturaleza es un laboratorio natural al aire libre y que sí lo podemos utilizar como sala de clase. Imagina que todos nuestros hijos vivan experiencias, pero que realmente vayan a transformar el ser, que sean transformadoras. Para nosotros era muy importante en nuestras evaluaciones medir la transformación que tenían los jóvenes, niños y niñas a la hora de entrar en nuestros programas y luego después cuando terminaban nuestros programas. Pues dijimos, bueno, imagina una sociedad realmente que esté en conexión con la naturaleza. Hablamos que estas láminas son del año 2008. Imagina que convivir también se aprenda conviviendo, es decir, lo importante de la comunidad, de nuestros ritos personales, de nuestros lugares donde nos podemos reunir como mujeres, como comunidades. Realmente es muy importante también eso. Entonces, por último, uno dice, bueno, imagina que todo esto que estamos hablando y que realmente todos estos territorios se pusieran a la disposición de la educación y que todo esto realmente como gobierno, como Estado, pudiéramos concretar políticas públicas donde realmente aumentáramos las horas de clase en los alumnos, los jóvenes, los niños, porque creemos que somos naturaleza, y si somos naturaleza, tenemos que aprender de la naturaleza. En la naturaleza también podemos aprender también mucho de lo que somos, de dónde venimos y también hacia dónde tenemos que ir. Entonces, por último, digo yo, la realidad y esta realidad no depende de apuntar hacia afuera, de que otros busquen las soluciones. Esta realidad se va a encontrar en la medida en que nosotros cambiemos la forma de mirar el mundo. Por lo tanto, esta realidad depende también de nosotros mismos y de cada uno de nosotros.
Yeah, thank you very much, Francisca, for a very deep and a comprehensive narrative about the concept of transformative education and putting nature at the center of everything, nature being the greatest laboratory for us. We really appreciate for all the ideas you have shared with us. Patricia, you have the floor. We still have some three panelists, and then we are going to give you the floor to ask question and share your perspective as well. Patricia, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. When Takeshi and Nana were talking about age, I just remembered I used to think I was young until I sat in a panel with Nana and Linda, and someone referred to us as the older people in the room. And that was the funniest thing that happened to me this year. Anyway, just to share a bit of personal perspective on my journey in IPCC. When I became focal point, or when I started interacting with the IPCC, I was still young. So it was not this year or the year before. And my awareness of IPCC was relatively low. I didn't know very much beyond just that they produce scientific assessments. And this reflects a lot of what the youth in Africa face. Because in as much as there is social media and all that, the information about IPCC does not really go very wide. So we did a bit of research sometime last year and surveyed about 300 experts, so people working in the field of climate science. And only 4% were under 26 years old. And then we had 20% between 26 and 35. So people in that age group are aware about climate change, but are not aware about the work of the IPCC. So that's a very big challenge that we identified. Another challenge that we found is funding for research is very low. Even the IPCC report working group 2 showed that very little money comes to Africa to fund research. And also access to this research is very low. I remember about 2 weeks ago, I was trying to access a paper that I was an author on, and it was behind a paywall. I could no longer be able to read a paper that I had written myself. And that's a very big challenge, especially for young early career scientists who are trying to get into IPCC processes. And then also funding to publish this research in open access journals is really low. So basically, it boils down to awareness and funding, which are some of the main challenges that young early career scientists in Africa face. Something else that has been mentioned is lack of mentorship. There are few female climate scientists who also, in addition to their work, participate in the IPCC. So this makes it difficult to get mentors who can be able to help young female scientists who want to be involved in the IPCC to do so. And so there, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to those of us in the room who work in these contexts to be able to hold the hand of one or two young African scientists, both female and male, to participate in IPCC activities. Another challenge that we've seen is mainstream media rarely ever covers IPCC issues or even science in my country. Even when the IPCC reports were coming out, we would have to beg media houses to run the story. And a lot of the time, it would just be a thread at the bottom when the news is going on, or just a very short interview. So the media, which is responsible or can really help us further awareness, is not very interested in this. So for us, what we've found works and is also an opportunity is partnering with organizations that have access to their own communication strategies. So we have organizations that specialize in or partner with climate comms, and therefore they help us to be able to put the word out. When the call for example, the cities nomination for authors to take part in the cities scoping came out, what we did is we partnered with an organization to support us in running webinars. So we did webinars across Africa, and we got a lot of people who were interested in participating, but absolutely had no idea who their focal point was, how do you get nominated, and all that. And so this is an opportunity that we have found works for us. So we run those webinars, we bring in experts, people get to ask questions, interact with the experts, and that way they are able to learn how to participate. Something else that is also an opportunity and a lesson that we've learned is leveraging social media. A lot of these early career scientists are on social media a lot. So LinkedIn, we post opportunities on LinkedIn, even just Instagram and WhatsApp enables us to be able to raise their awareness and help people know what is going on within IPCC and how they can be able to participate. I think something that I'd like to share also with everyone in the room is we have found that in order to get research to come, relevant research into the IPCC, we feel going forward co-designing is an approach that we really need to front, because we get a lot of projects that fund research on the continent, but it's not relevant to the needs of the continent. It serves other needs. So for us, being able to co-design research from the beginning helps us to be able to touch on the things that are actually gaps within the IPCC for Africa, and also that are needs for policymakers. And one way we do this is, for example, at the end of AR6, we identified what are the gaps in AR6 for Africa. And we are already using these gaps with funders that are interested to help them design research. If they're having postdoctoral researchers, we present them, these are the opportunities that you have. And so that way we are trying to bridge or to close the gaps of science within the continent. But we need partnerships, and so working together is something that we feel will really help us do better in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for sharing the initiatives that you are doing in Kenya. And we are very grateful for all the work that you are doing to promote the work of IPCC and raising awareness to young people. And it's incredible what you have done for the short span of time. And we can only encourage you to continue doing that in the AR7. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I give the floor to Patricia Crifo. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, sorry, for giving me the floor and inviting me to participate. So I'm a professor at École Polytechnique in France. I don't know if many of you know this school. It's a French grande école, what we call it grande école, a school for students, for engineering students. It was created in the 18th century. We have now around 3,700 students. Half of them are international students, 23 laboratories, and many initiatives to tackle the energy transition, the fight against climate change. So, what I wanted to highlight today in this event on the participation of young people in climate change science is three main initiatives that we developed at École Polytechnique to foster this participation in climate change science. So the first kind of initiative that we have for our students is to develop partnership. It's something that has been identified previously by my colleagues, the necessity to develop partnership oriented around our students. And let me stress one example of such a partnership, because it's almost 20 years ago that it was developed on climate finance. It's a topic that is very important at COP28, is climate finance, the loss and damage funds, and how do we engage our students on those topics. We have an initiative that is supported by the financial sector, and faced with the emerging demand for sustainable management of funds, we have developed a research initiative in which our students develop climate change science to address many important topics in climate finance. How can we commit companies and investors to finance those climate funds? Do companies have to benefit from those investments? Do they have to? Are there irresponsible companies doing greenwashing? Do they lose from not engaging in those funds? How can we put pressure on the private sector to make this energy transition? And it is our students that tackle those initiatives. They are very interested in working with the private sector to develop that. So that's the first example of partnerships that we have around our students to analyze those issues. A second example is a partnership with not this time private but public actors. We have signed a partnership in particular with the city of Paris. Cities are confronted with the issue of climate change at a very local level and at a very important level. And Paris is an example of a city that has proposed a very ambitious climate action plan. And we have partnered with Paris so that our students propose a scientific evaluation of the Paris Climate Action Plan. This is something that is very innovative because it is really based on science that our students use real world data and make some policy recommendation to improve or to change some policy actions that are developed at the city level to fight against climate change. This partnership was signed 5 years ago, and it is now going to be renewed for the next 5 years. It is something that is very interesting because our students, they work both with academic and with professional tutors from the city of Paris. So they are really at hand. They do their own research and they may also provide some policy recommendations. So it's very important for them to engage in those dimensions. And the third initiative I wanted to highlight on how do we engage youth in climate change science is that we have created an interdisciplinary center called E4C, Energy for Climate, which gathers all the laboratories, all the departments at École Polytechnique that work on the goal of energy transition. I'm the deputy director of this interdisciplinary center, and it's very important because we gather climate scientists, physicians, mathematicians, economists, management science as well, and our students develop projects, invent new technologies that can be replicable by the industry and that are supported by public policy. And on our campus, on site, we have developed some outdoor platforms, some demonstrators of the energy transition. It is our students that invent those technologies, that put them into practice, and that can show replicable results. For instance, in nanogrids, smart buildings, photovoltaic. We also have an agri-photovoltaic farm, and it's what we call a living lab. In order to accelerate the energy transition, we want to develop, test, and improve energy production systems. We also propose data hubs, climate models, and so on. And all of these initiatives, they are developed around a partnership with public, private, and our students. So that was the three main points I wanted to highlight. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing those perspective, Patricia, and we really appreciate for bringing in the experience from partnering with private sector, which I think is very instrumental going to the future. Okay, so I now give the floor to Larissa.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all the panelists. When I first saw the session, I thought so many people, how are they all going to have a different perspective? But it's been truly wonderful insights. And I know I'm the last one up here on the panel, so I know the pressure is on, but I promise I will leave you on a very high note. I'm sitting here wearing two hats. I'm representing UNICEF. I'm also a former environmental researcher, and I'm a young person. And I think, we started today really learning about how to engage young people and have them participate as young scientists. And I think in order to have a critical mass of young scientists, one thing that we really need to build on, especially when it comes to climate scientists, is having climate education in place, right? So we're going to end the note today on climate education. And I think I'll even go further back. I think first of all, in order to build scientists, you need to have a working education system. And in the face of a changing climate, you need to have a climate resilient education system. And currently, year over year, we're seeing over 40 million children and young people having their education disrupted due to the impacts of climate change. And that is a number that keeps growing and particularly affects women and young girls. And I think even when you're thinking about anecdotes, if there is a water shortage due to flooding or due to a drought, the people that are going to go and fetch the water far away are usually women and young girls. And that puts them at risk for gender based violence, but it also takes them out of the education equation. Um, I think not only do we need climate resilient education systems, but we need climate education. And I really want to build on what my colleague here, Eric from UNESCO, had been mentioning, because the numbers also don't look good there. I think if you look at 100 schools, only 53 of them will have climate education as part of their curriculum, which leaves a huge gap. And part of the UNICEF View report, which polls 700,000 young people, 70% of them were saying we actually didn't really learn a lot about climate change in the school. So we really see it, you need to start early. You need to start investing in the education from the child age on in order to ensure climate scientists. And I think we're at top 28 right now. But I think for the last 28 years, children have really systematically not been included in the processes. And I'm not just talking about participation, but I'm really talking about the heightened vulnerability and needs of children. If you're looking at the nationally determined contributions, only 30% of those really involved young people when they were being created. And I think even if you're looking at climate finance, less than 1% of the climate finance from multilateral climate funds is being invested in education right now. So we do see a gap in the policy space as well. So this is the year in which UNICEF, as the organization with the mandate to represent the rights of children and young people, has really come together to scale up their ambition in the climate space. And so we set out to draft plan, the Sustainability and Climate Change Action Plan of UNICEF, which goes from here until 2030 and really aims to galvanize a movement around children and young people within the sort of further climate agenda. And when we were writing the plan, asking young people, what is it that you want out of this space? If you raise your voice, how can we make what you want relevant? And I think in the top 5 they said we want support to be environmental researchers. We want to be able to provide our own evidence, and we want especially support at the grassroots level, making sure that we can be the ones to provide the primary data and evidence. And so I think, when we think about the opportunities within the IPCC process, there are lots, and I really want to commend the scholarship program, which I think is wonderful. I also really want to welcome the gender policy because I think it's a wonderful example of how you can mainstream and how you can ensure balanced participation. I think there's a lot that we can learn from that process and potentially move into a space where we can also have age balance and young people more represented along. So sort of to close out, I also want to speak a little bit to the practices, and then I'll finish. I think as part of this action plan and also as part of the work that we've been doing for over 70 years, we really have made it our mandate to empower children and young people with the skills and the education and the developmental opportunities to become champions in the climate space. And I think, as example, with the support of Fundación Meri and Francisca is here on the panel, we've been able to provide this wonderful environmental education all across Latin America. I think we've had the opportunity to really embed changes in climate curriculums in countries such as Cambodia, Bangladesh, and many, many more. And we've been able to make it gender responsive, which I think is so fundamental in this space. And lastly, and I'll finish with this basics, we're really able to support governments in making sure that schools are safe and climate resilient, that they have disaster risk reduction education and early warning systems in place, and so that they're able to withstand all the shocks that come up and keep children in school what is needed. So I'll finish on the note that over the next 30 years, there's going to be 4.2 billion children born. And I really think that is a generation that will have the power to change the future. So I think we're just asking everyone here to support us in asking global leaders to make sure that they have the space to be included everywhere. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Larissa. We really appreciate for your key message and also for the narrative of education, climate education, strengthening that. But also, we would really like to appreciate for the time that we had this morning. This morning, IPCC and UNICEF we had a very fantastic meeting discussing the same. How do we strengthen that collaboration to enhance the participation of young people in generation of climate change knowledge, but also in the IPCC process in assessment, like very well presented by Horace. So looking forward with optimism in the seventh assessment cycle. So thank you. We have completed the panel's presentation, and now for the last remaining minutes, we would like to open the floor for audience to share question and start back there. Can you give her the mic? Just introduce yourself and share. Can we give the mic, please? You can come forward and
Well, there you go. Hi, everyone. So before I start, what is quality education if young people cannot apply knowledge they have gained? My name is Zipporah Chiramanka, co-founder of Asasi and Friends Network. I'm an engineer, by the way. So through my process of schooling, I realized that we are always focusing on theory, but young people cannot even understand the basics of real climate changes. So my foundation, Assassin and Friends Network, we are taking STEM toolkits to schools so that we get to explain to young people that they are part of the solution. We want them to feel, we want them to touch, we want them to understand, and then take all their sense of innovation. I remember when one of our outreach, we went and then we asked a girl, what do you want to become? She wants to become a nurse, she wants to become a doctor. It's good. But after the practical session we had, they all want to be engineers. Why? Because we've explained to them that science could be fun, engineering could be fun. A lot of young girls are scared of science or to be researchers because of pi r squared, because of the lot of formulas we are solving. But when young people are able to understand the basics, are able to apply whatever they are being taught in class, then they know that yes, I could create a solution even in a problem. We talk about green skills, but we are not teaching how they can harness these skills in school. There's a gap in our education system, and then I wish that we will change that. From here, I would really love it if UNESCO, UNICEF, or any other organizations can partner with my organization so that we can look up going to underprivileged areas in Ghana. I'm from Ghana, by the way. So we could go to underprivileged areas. They should not suffer. We talk about education. There shouldn't be a gap. It shouldn't because I'm in a rural area, I do not have quality education. Quality education shouldn't just be in the urban areas, but also in the underprivileged areas as well. Thank you very much.
thank you very much. Do anyone from the panel want to reflect on that?
I'll just say something very quick and then I'll pass on. Thank you for that intervention. And I think just building on that, Committee of the Rights of the Child just published the General Comment 26, which is a policy tool that can help governments interpret the Convention of the Rights of the Child. And within that, there is a right to education and a right to participation. And so I think this is also really an appeal to everyone to make sure that this general comment can be operationalized in each of the countries. But I'll pass on.
Thank you. Maybe reacting quickly. Thank you so much for this point. And I think formal climate change education holds that transformative power you're asking. But for that, you need to address not only knowledge but also attitudes and competences. That means also critical thinking, empathy, collaboration, cooperation, understanding of complexity. All these elements are absolutely essential if we want to empower the future generation. And to me, an important aspect is to transform what is often anxiety into agency. And to do that, you need an understanding of the physics, the dynamics of climate change, but also you need that project-based pedagogy and narratives. And these narratives, I think it sends a message to us as well, scientists, in the way we present. Sometimes, and the media also transform it, is very doom and gloom. And I think we have to have that capacity of projecting ourselves positively. And yes, as you were saying, being part of a solution, projecting yourself positively in the future. And I think it's really for us to invent a desirable future, and for that you need competency. So quality climate change education is all these dimensions, and that's really what we're trying to push at DOC, at UNESCO, for this education. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that reflection. Yeah, Aida.
Thank you. I would like to thank the panel for your views and experience. We start discussing how to engage young people in IPCC processes, and I fully agree with what has been said here. It's important, but I was thinking that the proportion of young people who could be involved in IPCC is very low compared to the to the young people in general. And after we have the presentation by Eric and sorry, I forgot your name, and the Chilean experience on general education, and which is which is very important also. And now what I was thinking is that Africa is a very young continent, and there are many young people who are not in school. It's not only Africa, perhaps in Asia. And how can we reach these people? How can we empower them in regard of what Sonia has shown, the first IPCC synthesis report figure? I mean, in these regions which are highly vulnerable to climate change, and the fact that young people will have this burden of climate change. How can we reach these people which are out of school? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sonia, are you still online? Maybe Sonia could. Yeah, I understand. But I wanted to give the floor to Sonia because if she is online, that does not seem to be the case. Okay, Francisca would like to hear.
Yo, gracias. Em, Creo que es importante entender de que tiene que haber un equilibrio y que si el mundo se dedica a pensar o nosotros como padres queremos forzar a nuestros hijos, porque obviamente hay carreras que son económicamente mucho más rentables que otras carreras. Siempre los jóvenes están aspirando también a tener estas carreras. Creo que hoy en día el rol de la ciencia es fundamental y eso es lo que hemos visto en los últimos años, sobre todo con el cambio climático, pero creo que siempre tiene que haber un equilibrio y no podemos olvidarnos de que cada cultura, cada territorio es distinto, cada cultura es distinto y cada niño o cada niña también tiene un potencial distinto. Yo a veces me pregunto y digo, a ver, ¿quién van a sobrevivir? Las personas que viven en el campo o viven en sus tribus o viven en sus lugares, o van a sobrevivir los que estamos viviendo en la ciudad. Para mí, la cultura tiene ya la sostenibilidad, ellos se saben sostener. Y me encantaría como mirar eso mucho más, poder unir la ciencia, por eso nosotros trabajamos en un modelo a la hora de abordar el territorio que tiene 4 dimensiones. Trabajamos en lo, en la ciencia, en lo científico, en lo natural, en lo social, en lo cultural y trabajamos también en lo económico. son 4 dinámicas importantes a la hora de abordar un territorio, porque también cuando hablamos de lo económico, entendemos que la conservación es muy difícil hoy en día. La conservación pasa a ser un problema de más de los propios gobiernos en el fondo. Entonces, creo que las áreas marinas protegidas, las áreas marinas las terrestres también, son una tremenda posibilidad para que sean también, de ahí poder sacar en el fondo la información, que es lo que nosotros hacemos, sacamos la información de la ciencia, luego convertimos información en gráficas educativas, cosas de irnos al territorio desde lo científico y luego hacemos un abordaje general que tiene que ver con una continuidad del proceso donde también ya el territorio, educación y también política pública para poder obtener cambios que sean importantes.
Thank you very much, Francisca, for your response to that question. We'll give the floor to Sonia, and then we provide the opportunity for 2 more questions, and then we'll be winding up. Sonia, you have the floor, please.
Can you hear me? Sorry, maybe it's not working. Oh, you can. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to answer the question from Ida. And it's a really good point that a lot of the young
Thank you very much, Sonia. Now, just 2 quick questions, short one, and then we'll be winding up. I have Sarah, I have Ohichi, and Bernard. Okay, very short question, please.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Sarah. I come from Tanzania Meteorological Authority. I'm a meteorologist and climate scientist. I'm very happy that WMO now understand the importance of inclusion of youth. May I know the sustainability of this movie and how credible do you think the inclusion of youth will impact the IPCC process? Thank you.
Very much for that question, Bernardino.
Thank you. I'm Bernardine Yantum from Mozambique. It's not really a question, but I would like to add the point of language barrier. So I'm from Mozambique. It's a Portuguese speaking. I will also be speaking on behalf of Angola, Guinea-Bissau, and other 5 countries in Africa. So there's a challenge of doing science if you are a Portuguese speaking country. There are a lot of very good young people, but they need opportunities. So one thing with the IPC scholarship, especially for young, for girls, I think it should start from master's degree. So because I see it mostly for PhD. So if you can engage with the girls from master's degree, they would advance and give their contribution to that. Another thing, it's I did my master's and PhD in South Africa, and we used to be very jealous to South African when we have science conference abroad, because for other African country to get a visa, it was a challenge. And I see it also happening now. I've managed to get involved to IPCC through an international science conference, and I was told I submitted my CV to our former focal point, and it didn't go through. And when I went back, I complained, and they say, okay, now we are the national focal point. I'm very new in the process, but I've already missed one IPCC session just because of visa. So if you are coming from most of the African countries, you go through a very deep scrutiny, but you are going to attend IPCC session. So imagine if you are IPCC and you are not able to engage with others, where you can learn, you can spread the word. How can you invite young people if you are not well, you know, informed about the process? So I think IPCC should also think about the whole process, maybe through the department that it did with the legal issues about how to guarantee all the delegates for IPCC session that are able to get visa and they don't need to go to normal process. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernardino, for your comment and for the question. I hope the Secretariat is here and they're listening. So we have Pamela and Oishi. Very quick question, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Manami from Ministry of Economy, Japan, and I'm also like part of governmental representative team for IPCC. My question is, so we all talk about inclusivity on the whether you're women or younger people, and then what? So far, I talked with many author IPCC. Everybody said the job is too demanding, and they cannot do much other thing, and that's caused them to block them to get into the IPCC. Is there any way of the is there any movement to solve this problem on the IPCC side? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, let's finish with Pamela and then yes, very quick, please. Very short.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Pamela Levira. I'm a policy officer on climate change at African Union. Just quick one. I wanted to know if there is a possibility to do a kind of a reform within the IPCC process to ensure that there is a chair for the youth in every portfolios of the IPCC. So the chair, I mean position for youth has to be as a policy within the IPCC process rather than begging these people to get involved. Once we have a policy in place, the next step will be in implementation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So because of time, I would really like to request that the panel, you provide your concluding remark, and then if there are questions that you would like to respond, then it will be very useful. If we start with Larissa there, if there is any question to reflect, and then your concluding remark, please.
Thank you. I'll keep it very, very short. I think I'll just repeat that. I wanted to actually, sorry, I wanted to answer a question that was asked earlier here in the front about what to do with the children that are out of school. So that's going to be my concluding remarks. Because I think that's a question that I often get is, how do we build the adaptive capacity of those young people and children that are already out of school due to the impacts of climate change? And I think there are, many sort of blended learning opportunities. There are digital learning opportunities. There's sort of a learning passport that UNICEF also works with. However, I really just want to, emphasize that children should not be out of school the right to an education and the right to a healthy environment are both fundamental rights of the Convention of the Rights of Children. And so I think if these are questions that we're asking ourselves, we really need to take a step back and see how can we ensure that no child is not in school at the moment, and to make sure that every single young person can have the future to become an active person, and build more sustainable and more resilient societies. So I'll close on that. Thank you.
Over to Patricia.
Thank you. My last word would be to follow up on the questions that were raised on the practical implementation of the reforms needed. I think it's important to have a look at how people can access to those institutions, and how young can be given some real power. It's a matter of young democracy, and I think we need to have this bottom up youth democracy for the young. I agree.
You are, okay. Patricia, Ingor.
Para cerrar. Sorry. Bueno, para cerrar, creo que estamos en estamos en el camino correcto. Creo que todas estas oportunidades nos van ayudando a conocer diferentes posturas, diferentes formas, y ojalá que en realidad podamos seguir con los diálogos. Y creo que es súper importante integrar los proyectos, la sociedad civil, pública y privada, para tener un éxito en el futuro. Me quedo con eso. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Patricia.
Yeah, so for me, we need to keep having these conversations, because the more people hear the challenges we face, the more we get impetus to solve them. So thank you for convening this, and may we keep having these conversations.
Thank you very much. Nana.
Thanks for the opportunity to contribute on the panel. I will want to answer to Pamela, and then we'll end it from there. So the IPCC is a science group, and all we can do is to encourage the young people to be a part. So we don't have like a chair, like the way we have the different groups of the UN, especially those doing the advocacies, have those kind of position for the youth, or specifically for the young people. What we can do is to encourage the early career scientists, as we are doing now, and looking at inclusivity. So we think about gender, we think about early career scientist contribution, and balance geographically and all of that. So what I would say to encourage the young people is just the participation. We go through elections process for positions in the bureau membership positions. And so they can also put themselves up for election during those process, but of course their country must nominate them in that process. Otherwise, their contribution as authors, as contributing authors, and all of that, I mean, all those processes, they can be a part. They can also advocate for IPCC, I mean, their social media spaces as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Takeshi.
Thank you, Ladislaus. Thank you for having me on this panel. And I'm just reminded of the importance of public awareness and mentorship. These are things that I had thought about a lot last year while running for the TFI co-chair position. But recently, I've been very busy with the planning, and I've been reminded to add this back to my to-do list. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean Pascal and Shongwe. If two of you can also reflect on sustainability and the issue of language barrier. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ladislas. I'll say something on language for sure. Well, youngs, I would like to address one of the questions about the importance of having young scientists. Why is it so important to have young scientists in IPCC? Well, they are the future by definition of IPCC. They have, as Sonia has said earlier, the most at stake. Because they will live through a century that is marked by climate change in a big way. but they also have new perspectives. They have new knowledge. They know about new methods. You know, they will probably be more at ease with artificial intelligence methods, just to take one example, than all the scientists for which it's totally new. So their participation is very important. We need to support them. We need to support them more. And one way, only one way, is through the IPCC scholarship program. And I hope it's going to be expanded. Now, just on language, I just wanted to fully agree with what you said on the importance of also being knowledgeable about the fact that there isn't only English in the world. And in Belgium, I've created 7 years ago a platform for the French-speaking community, for the Francophone community, publishing an information letter in French on the basis of the IPCC report. And I have some copies here and also some the links for those who are interested. It's freely available. It doesn't address your need in Portuguese, but at least it exists in French. I think there are a few French-speaking people in the audience as well. It's called La Plateforme Wallonne pour le GIEC. But indeed, I think in general, IPCC needs to be more sensitive to the language issue. And one way to demonstrate it is by accelerating its translation process, because in the past, at least, the translation, at least in the UN languages, again, Portuguese is not part of it, but at least in the UN languages, including Spanish, including French, including Arabic, the translation of the summary for policymakers have taken way too long after they've been approved. And that's something the present Bureau, I hope, will help to improve.
Thank you very much. Horace.
Yeah. So, okay. Okay. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Changa, for having us in this panel. Maybe one thing worth mentioning is that the scholarship program needs more funding resources, and the more funding we have, we'll be able to support the masters, chapter scientists, all the needs that have been identified. We just need the sufficient resources to do that. The issue of visa, I may mention that the Secretariat usually send the invitation on time, but certain things are beyond our control, really. The only thing is to ensure that we send the invitations on time, and if the governments nominate the people on time and respond to all the relevant communication, I think that can make sure that the visa is you apply make the visa application early enough, and that's the only thing we can do. But certain things are beyond our control. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Bernardino, I think if there's any challenge, communicate very quickly to the Secretariat and it will be resolved. Sonia, are you still online for your concluding remarks?
Yes.
Over to you, please.
It's just a very few last words.
Thank you very much, Sonia, for your participation. And now I'd like just to say some few words to conclude this. And transformative education, enhancing the participation of young people in the process, including climate change science and in the IPCC process. It can be done, it must be done, and better today than yesterday, better tomorrow than today, and let's work together to strengthen that. The comments, ideas, lesson learned that you have shared with us, we are going to take into consideration, synthesize it, and appropriately consider on how they can inform our action. We really appreciate for coming and for all the contribution that we have made. And this brings us to the end of this session. Thank you very much.